I want to talk today about Trae Young. The trade deadline is coming up. There's been a lot of discussion about Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. They're having a relatively disappointing season so far. Trae Young is 25, 26. They traded for Dejounte Murray last season, hoping that that's the star power. That's the duo that will put Atlanta to that next level. And it just looks like it hasn't been working. I'm gonna just keep it a stack. So I want to shout out the hardwood for this video right here. The Trae Young problem explained. Go ahead and show some love to his channel. Links will be in the description. But hey man, let's get into it.
Spurs news tonight. Dejounte Murray traded away to Atlanta
for 3 future first-round picks.
It's definitely the most young, exciting backcourt in the East.
Am I wrong in thinking like the Hawks? That's the best backcourt in the NBA, right?
Atlanta Hawks at their peak. What does that look like?
The talent we have and just everything around, if we could put it together. Top 3 team in the East. I really believe that.
We got to stop doing interviews with Taylor Rooks, man. She be getting the quotes out of y'all, and I know why. I like Taylor Rooks too, so.
Finally able to turn out the lights on Atlanta.
Win a championship, you know what I'm saying? Not just be in the picture, just be in the running. Like, I want to come into the season like people look at that they can win, or they got a chance.
Atlanta's now dropped 5 consecutive games.
Essentially anyone other than Trae Young and now Jalen Johnson's coming on as kind of a foundational piece for them. Everybody else, that includes Murray, should be available. Fair to say after a year and a half, that transaction is not one that you would want to sort of do again if you were the Hawks.
Ever since making the 2021 Eastern Conference Finals, Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks have had disappointing season after disappointing season. And after about a third of the way into the 2023-2024 NBA season, it's looking to be another one of those seasons as they're sitting at 14 and 19 currently. But what it feels like nobody's talking about is
I was high on the Hawks going into the season, dog. Because I saw something against the Celtics, like, I really thought they were, this was the start of something new, kind of like what Phoenix were in the bubble. Like, oh, I saw something there. They can build on this. But it turns out, at least the way it's looking like right now, the Celtics just played down to the competition. Like, it really should have been a sweep, but the Celtics were bullshitting for a couple games. Trae Young had that one game, half court, game winner, ice dagger, ice Trae, and, they overachieved. But it's not looking good, man.
Is how incredible of a season Trae Young is having at 25 years old. He's averaging 28.2 points per game and 11.3 assists. So who's to blame for the Atlanta Hawks' continual disappointment? And where should they...
Yeah, not too much on Trae Young too, bro. Not too much on Trae Young too. And I'm not trying to pause that much, but I am trying to pause that much. But, yo, the Trae Young conversations at the start of this season were nasty as heck, especially with Tyrese going off too. People were so ready to write off Trae Young in these top point guard conversations that it was kind of crazy. Now, to be fair, his start to the season was pretty abysmal. If we look at, I don't know, this 11 game stretch right here, we're looking at 23 points, 11 assists, 36% from the field, 28% from 3. Hey, still great at the line, though. But regardless, 23 points on really, really bad efficiency, but still being a really good passer. When we were looking at a Tyrese and what he was doing at the beginning of the season, Steph being Steph, Luka being Luka, Shea being Shea, De'Aaron being De'Aaron, it looks like very, very fast Trae Young was slipping in these conversations. But I'm not going to lie, ever since this game, Trae Young's been going crazy. To the tune of 30 points, 11 assists. Field goal percentage went way up to 46%. 3-point percentage went way up to being closer to 40 at 38.8%. And free throw percentage actually went down, but that's fine because it's still at 83. But yeah, Trae Young has been balling the fuck out, and is quietly having the best season of his career, arguably next to 2022, where he put up 28 and 10 on the best efficiency of his career. But even this season has given that season a run for its money, in my opinion. And I would honestly lean towards this season because of that the playmaking difference. But hey, shout out to Trae though. Shout out to Trae.
They even go from here. Today in this video, we will dive into how the Atlanta Hawks are quietly wasting prime Trae Young. When the Hawks first traded for Trae Young in the 2018 draft, giving up Luka Doncic and gaining Trae Young and a 2019 first-round pick, although controversial at the time, it seemed like the Hawks were poised to start building something in the Eastern Conference. And after two losing records in Trae Young's first 2 seasons, they would break out during the 2020-2021 season, going 41-31. And at the time, it seemed like the Hawks had a super talented young core. They had Trae Young at 22 years old, Kevin Huerter at 22, DeAndre Hunter 23, John Collins 23, Cam Reddish 21. Not to mention Clint Capella at 26 years old, they acquired in a trade and signing Bogdan Bogdanovic. They would finish 5th in the Eastern Conference that season, defeat the Knicks in 5 games in the first round, and then shock the NBA world in a Game 7 that broke Ben Simmons, defeating the #1 seed Philadelphia 76ers. Although they would fall to Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games, the future was bright for Atlanta. They had their superstar in Trae Young, they had draft capital, they had their young and veteran pieces around him. But then 2022, they would take a little bit of a step back, going 43-39, finishing 9th, making the play-in, and ending up getting the 8th seed in the 2022 playoffs, where they would lose in 5 games to the Miami Heat. Trae Young would have an absolutely abysmal series, averaging 15 points per game on a shocking 30.
But I've never been so sure that Trae Young was going to get clamped, though, because this team defensively was crazy, dog. That 2022 Heat team, defensively, ooh, that was a team. That was a team.
2% from the field. That offseason, they would make some adjustments, trading Kevin Huerter to the Kings, acquiring in a blockbuster deal Dejounte Murray from the San Antonio Spurs, coming off an all-star season, basically for 3 firsts, but yet they'd have a very similar result. Going 41-41, finishing 8th in the Eastern Conference, somehow beating the Heat in the 7-8 play-in game, but losing in the opening round in a 6-game series versus the Boston Celtics. And at this point, we started to wonder, what is Atlanta's plan from here? They had made a decent...
You know what's crazy with Atlanta? And maybe this is a hot take, but I feel like there's certain moves in history where hindsight is 20/20, right? Where the outcomes define your legacy, essentially. But I think in the moment, the moves that Atlanta was making was not the craziest moves, in my opinion. In my opinion. Because, you know, essentially, when you... A lot of things in life are a gamble. A lot of things in life are probability based, right? Especially the NBA. A lot of things are probability. But sometimes on that 70-30 wheel and you flick that timer thing, the probability is 70-30 and you just land on the 30. And that happens back-to-back times. That happens back-to-back times. And I think for the Hawks, a lot of what has happened might just be that. It might just be that. Because, again, the way he laid it out, off of that 2021 team, it looks like they were relatively ready to win pretty soon if they just added another star to the team. And I think Dejounte Murray, given the timeline of Dejounte Murray's career, he had the potential to be that guy. He had the potential to be the backcourt pairing that Trae Young needed. He had the potential to be the shot creator alongside Trae Young that Trae Young needed. Dejounte Murray has also improved from the three-point line ever since he came to the Hawks, unless I'm tripping. But let's look at the numbers. Yeah, Dejounte Murray shooting 39%. He's having his best shooting season so far this season. I think the thing that has disappointed a lot of Atlanta Hawks fans is the regression on defense that Dejounte Murray had. And also, it's just because he's playing more off ball, but I'm looking at these numbers. Goddamn, I mean, 25-year-old putting up 21, 9, and 8 with 2 steals. I don't think that was the worst trade in the world, dog. I'm gonna keep it a stack. I don't think that was the worst trade in the world. Shout out to Dejounte Murray. Like, not too much on Dejounte Murray, bro. But hey.
Recently risky move that offseason to acquire a rising star alongside Trae, but yet they would get pretty much the same result. Matter of fact, they were second in the league in offensive rating and 26th in defense in 2022, and then were 7th in offensive rating and 22nd in defense in 2023, and would actually drop 4 spots in net rating. And that brings us to the 2023-2024 season, where the Hawks are 14-20. They've been terrible at home this year, had a pretty poor December, but yet quietly, with no one really paying attention, Trae Young is having arguably the best season of his career. Averaging 28...
Their defense has just been atrocious too. Like, I'm going to keep it a stack. I think after that 2021 season, they were expecting DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish to take some sort of leap defensively, and Clint Capella to stay where he was at. John Collins as well. But what has panned out is, yeah, they just gave up on those players' development, and they just wanted to go offensive heavy. And I think Trae Young can be a part of a very offensively oriented and successful team, but the other parts of the team just can't hang. I'm sorry. Outside of Dejounte Murray and whatchamacallit, and Bojan Bogdanovic, the rest of the team can't hang in a Sacramento Kings style offense. I'm sorry. And defensively, you all know defensively. I just want to see Trae Young on a team with good defense, dog. Like, I think that would be very interesting.
0.2 points per game and 11.3 assists, which is good for second in the league behind Tyrese Halliburton. But he's also hitting 38% of his threes on a whopping 9.3 attempts per game. Matter of fact, in December alone, Trae averaged 30.4 points per game, 12.2 assists per game on 48, 42, 84 splits, becoming the only player to average 30 and 12 over a month in the three-point era. Yet the Hawks would go 4-10 in December. And as much hype as Trae Young was getting in 2021 and 2022 after a down season last year by his standards, he's completely back to 2021 Trae, but yet nobody's talking about it. And obviously that's because the Hawks just aren't that good of a team. So who is to blame for this? Let's take a look at their roster. First and foremost, the demise of John Collins is something that is somewhat puzzling. I know he had that weird finger injury in his last season with Atlanta. The team didn't want him to get surgery. He played through it. But 2 to 3 years ago, nobody saw this coming for John Collins. It's really a sad story, as he's now a below average NBA player in Utah. Then if we take a look at Bogey, he may be 31, but he's surely not showing any signs.
Bogey a dog. I'm pretty sure this game right here I was at, Bogey's a dog. I like Bogey. Bogey is one of those players that I think on a championship contender will be amazing. There's a couple of those players in the league, kind of like what Aaron Gordon was to the Denver Nuggets last season and still to this day. But Bogey's one of them for me. Another one, Terry Rozier. Put Terry Rozier on a championship contender. I swear to God he'd cook.
Of slowing down, averaging 17.7 points per game, shooting 38% from 3 as well on almost 9 attempts per game. He's also having one of the best seasons of his career and is one of the favorites for 6th man of the year. Then we have Jalen Johnson, the 20th overall pick in 2021, having an absolutely breakout season. If you have not watched Jalen Johnson this year, I encourage you to go check out some highlights. Johnson, he's absolutely balling. Check out this poster he had on Chet last night in a game where Atlanta beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he had 28 points, 7 rebounds, 4 steals, and shot 61% from the field. This man went from averaging 5.6 points per game last year in only 15 minutes of play and shooting 29% from 3. He's now playing 30 minutes a game, 15.3 points, 8.1 rebounds, 41% from 3, shooting 59.6%.
Add Jalen Johnson to that high-powered offense, by the way.
from the field with an insane true shooting percentage of 67.7%. Jalen Johnson and Bogey are not the problem. Even Clint Capella has been fine to above average this year. He's pretty much been the same player statistically for the past 3 seasons. However, he is $20 million and almost 30. The Hawks should consider moving him at the deadline depending on what offers are actually out there. When it does come to issues on this team, let's start with maybe not the biggest one, but certainly an issue. DeAndre Hunter. He was drafted 4th overall. Atlanta made a pretty big move for him. Now, luckily, they had taken Jackson Hayes at 8, so it still was a good trade looking back on it even now. However, what happened to DeAndre Hunter's supposed 3-and-D utility? This man has been absolutely abysmal on defense this year. He has the worst defensive rating of anyone on his team that plays over 11 minutes per game.
Brother.
And he hasn't even been remotely a good defender since 2021. Now, he's shooting the crap out of the ball this year, so we have to give him that. A career high 40.4% from 3 on a career high in attempts. He has been sidelined for the past couple weeks with a knee injury, but I feel like if you're Landry Fields, the Hawks GM, you have to move him at the deadline. He's not serving your team in the long run and the type of team that you need to build around Jalen Johnson and Trae Young. And when it comes to AJ Griffin, I don't even know what's going on with AJ. If you're not familiar, he had a pretty good rookie season last year as the 16th pick in the 2022
that
NBA
was crazy,
draft.
Chad.
And then this season, he's just not in the rotation.
That was crazy.
Barely playing. And he did have a stretch, I know, a couple weeks ago where he was out for personal reasons, but he's been back for 3 or 4 games, and he's recording DNPs at this point. My assumption is that Quinn Snyder has just deemed his defense completely unplayable, but I'm hoping post-trade deadline, if the Hawks do in fact sell a couple pieces, that AJ will get 18 to 20 minutes a night the rest of the season so that Atlanta can at least see what they have in him, let him develop, and see if he can come out of this sophomore slump. At the end of the day, the 2 biggest pieces of blame I'm putting on the Hawks starts with number 1, Dejounte Murray. It's time to trade him. I'm not exactly sure what the Hawks could get for Dejounte, but if you can get 50 cents on the dollar for what you paid for him, I think you have to do it. His contract's going up next season, $7 or $8 million. Plus, it's just quite clear to me that Dejounte Murray does not fit this team. As long as you have Trae Young and shooting, this is going to be a good offensive team. You don't need more offense, in my opinion. You need defense. And Dejounte Murray has been pretty average defensively for the past 2 seasons with the Hawks. And even if you go into some advanced metrics, including...
I think people got fooled with how good Dejounte Murray was in San Antonio. I remember the conversations people were having about Dejounte Murray being lamp for real. But I think Atlanta thought that Dejounte Murray was supposed to be this Kawhi Leonard figure that was supposed to carry you on defense. You know what I'm saying? And he just didn't turn out to be that guy. If anything, he became more offensively oriented than what people expected. I think that's a part of those things that they assessed and it just didn't turn out to be true.
EPM and defensive EPM, heck, even defensive rating with the Spurs, he wasn't that great. He just filled the stat sheet by leading the league in steals that season. As I was finishing up this video, a report came out yesterday that the Atlanta Hawks are open to trading anybody on their roster not named Trae Young and Jalen Johnson, which I believe is 100% the correct move. Just a few days ago when I first recorded this video, there was talks about them acquiring Pascal Siakam, being buyers at the trade deadline, forcing this roster construction to try to compete more, which I thought was a huge mistake. So for Trae Young's sake, for Atlanta Hawks fans' sake, for Jalen Johnson's sake, for Quinn Snyder's sake, and for their young pieces like AJ Griffin and Kobe Buffkin's sake, I'm glad to hear they are willing to trade at the deadline. I'll believe it when I see it. You could easily keep someone like Bogey, who's having a career season and is on a team-friendly contract, while still trimming the fat and retooling for the future. Plus, let's be honest, I still think this roster can contend for the play-in tournament without some of these pieces, while setting themselves up better for the next 2 to 3 years and giving their young guys some time to develop. If you're a Hawks fan, what do you think? Do you want them to stand pat at the trade deadline? Would you actually want them to go out and buy another piece? Or do you want them to retool and recenter around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson? I'm confident to say...
So I think the problem with the Atlanta Hawks is It's not really a problem. I just feel like for the Hawks at this point, they need to be realistic with what they want. Like, what are their goals? What are their goals? And does building around Trae Young meet those goals? I think that the Atlanta Hawks, statistically speaking, historically speaking, is the definition of mid. Someone said, like, literally their career wins and losses record is at 500, or like a couple games out of 500 in 1,000 game sample size of a franchise. You know what I'm saying? So they've never had a stretch where they've been extremely dominant in history. Couple of stretches being a good playoff team, but they've never had a dominant stretch. And I personally think that this is a team similar to the Sacramento Kings and similar to the New York Knicks, where so many years of bad basketball being played in front of their fans, so many years of just being at best mid, that let's just get the city buzzing, let's just get the city booming. We got that star player, right? We got that star player, that superstar player, that flashy player in Trae Young that the city has, taken as their own. Ice trade a game. For real. They got him. So I think they should move in the direction of, let's just try to build a team that can be competitive for a couple of years. Without really championship expectations, in my opinion. Because even the Knicks, I think they're trying, but... And I love Trae Young, but I'm gonna stay consistent. I don't think Trae Young is a number one option on a championship winning team. Championship level team, maybe. But a championship winning team, I don't think you win a championship with Trae Young as your best player. And if their goal is to win a championship, then I think you reevaluate the situation. Because my main thing with Trae Young is I don't want his prime, and we are entering the prime of Trae Young's career. We've already been at low key, but it is what it is. We're entering the prime of Trae Young's career. I don't want us to look back and view Trae Young as another Damian Lillard situation. And maybe blowing it up is extreme, but for me, as a fan, I just don't want to see Trae Young's prime wasted on a team that, realistically speaking, with the moves that they can make, I just don't even know what moves they could make that would make them into that, perennial 50 win team that's going to a bunch of Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I don't know what they could do. I don't know what they could do. I think they found a gem in Jalen Johnson, and I think that is a piece they can move forward with. But realistically speaking, I do not think it is a case of blow it up for this team, but I also think this team needs to just be realistic with what they want this team to be. I don't think you can build a championship team around Trae Young, and for them to get to a point where Trae Young is on the team that wins a championship, I think they would need to make some sort of move, or there would be some sort of internal improvement that a player on the team would have to be better than Trae Young, if that makes sense. Like, I can see Trae Young being in a Dame situation, in a Dame role, right? I think Dame could win in Milwaukee. But for the Hawks being their number one, I don't think that's realistic. I think that's being a little bit delusional, and which is fine. I think every team can't be a championship contender. Every team's goals isn't just win a championship, and I don't think Atlanta's goal right now is to win a championship. I think they found their star. I think they're trying to maximize the years out of their star, and just look back and say they didn't waste Trae Young's prime. But it is a tough situation that they're in. And I just want them to be more defensively focused at the end of the day. I think Dejounte Murray was a risk that did not pan out because they thought Dejounte Murray defensively was something that He wasn't. I think some of the players showed promise, showed potential after 2021. It just didn't pan out. Again, sometimes the dice just doesn't roll in your favor, which is tough, but it is what it is. And I think that's what happened with a DeAndre Hunter. I think that's what happened with a Cam Reddish. I think that's what happened with Clint Capella to a certain extent. I think that's what happened with John Collins. They just rolled down a bad dice 4 straight times in a row. But in hindsight, like, it made sense to take that risk. The risk just didn't pan out. You know, I think Quinn Snyder was a decent signing. Quinn Snyder has never been a bad coach, in my opinion. It's just an unfortunate situation that the Hawks are in my opinion. But with that being said, again, shout out to Hardwood for the video. And I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.